Hey nerds, we are going to do a review and breakdown of The Penguin Episode 7, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin. So you have just watched the 7th episode of The Penguin. The title of it is Top Hat, which is written by Vladimir Cvetko and directed by Kevin Bray. It premiered tonight on Max, and we are now recording right after the episode. And the spoiler-free logline is: Oz fights to preserve everything he's built, while Sofia makes a shocking discovery. So my spoiler-free thoughts on this episode is that it showed a lot of flashbacks to Oz's childhood with his brother and his mother. It gives more context as to how he became who he is now and the motivations behind all of it, because he did come from a very lower income family and that they're struggling. They have 3 kids and it's just a very dire situation that they needed money really quickly, and so they do it out of desperation. This episode is also talking about loose ends and how do the main characters make critical decisions on what to do with these loose ends, and we'll get to that in the spoiler part of this review. Again, just when you think that Oz is in trouble, he always gets himself out of it. This is no different from previous episodes that we've seen him do. This time is with a very surprising death that happens in this episode. With one episode left, I hope that it ends on a high note. As I mentioned before with the final episodes of Agatha all along, and with Marvel in general, they tend to have their high episodes during the middle of the season, while hopefully the Penguin doesn't fall into this trap of having these really great highs, and then the ending is going to be very anticlimactic and it's going to have more open-ended type of storyline going. I hope that they do something a little bit different than that, but we shall see, because we still have one episode left. In terms of rating, I would say that this episode would be a 9 for me, which is a movie marathon. I think that it has been a very consistent series so far, even though that the highs were very high. I think when we look back on episodes 5 through 7, they were really high. And even though this episode doesn't match it's still pretty high in terms of the ratings. There's no really bad episodes. I think that for the most part, the beginning of it was a little slow, but it picked up pretty well for the most part, so I don't have any qualms about that. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts. If you like to hear what we have to say about the Penguin and about other content that we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support as we are growing as a channel, and we really appreciate your support on all our other platforms, including Facebook. So without further ado, spoilers ahead. So we pick up here with this first image of Oz going into the apartment in Crown Point. However, before we get into this part, there was a huge flashback scene. It took about 10 to 12 minutes of flashbacks going back to an apartment that was very similar to this apartment. And we now figured out why Oz's mother was so triggered in the middle episodes about being in this apartment, because the apartment was very much the same as it was when she was a struggling mom with 3 kids. And it shows also young Oz, who is a cripple, and the older brother tends to have more responsibility. The father's not in the picture. Then there's a younger brother. I think Oz is more of a middle child here. And the older brother does a job for the local gangsters, and the local gangster gave him $50. And basically, it seems as though Oz really wanted to be part of that gangster life. It was very similar to what happened to Henry Hill in Goodfellas, but he has an older brother to there to check him in with those types of tendencies. So the boys then decided to go underground and play hide and seek, and this is where Oz inadvertently trapped his 2 brothers underground. And so there was a big rainstorm that happened, and basically they most likely drowned in the sewer while Oz and his mother was watching him. Classic movie. We don't really know whether or not he did it intentionally or not. Some may speculate that he did it intentionally, some to say that it might be an accident, but who knows? I think that the evidence through his expressions, it leans towards the fact that he did it intentionally, because his brothers probably thought of him in a lesser light because of his disability and because he wanted affection from his mother, even though his mother does give him a lot of affection. I also speculate as though whether or not it was a stepchildren situation, but we didn't really know whether or not that is the case, but we can only speculate with that. We then get to see here as he barges into this apartment, he finds his mother is missing. Vic is on the ground, got hit over the head, and so Vic is very disoriented, doesn't know what's going on. Oz is trying to ascertain what is going on with the situation, and then Oz is still very quick on his feet. Even though he knows that his mother is missing, he knows that danger is coming. He asks Vic to leave the premises so that he can get an army and that he can get organized, and he basically stays behind to defend himself. And you can see here that he is in anticipation for whatever comes into the door. We do have to really admire how Oz is in terms of thinking quick on his feet. He did that whole monologue with Vic as to, can't hesitate in this game. You have to be able to readjust, you have to be able to adapt, and you have to make sure that you are 2 steps ahead. And we'll get to that 2 steps ahead part later on. We see that Sal then comes in with a golf club from Oz's apartment and starts beating him down. And basically, this is, again, retribution for what Oz did to his wife and his son by burning them alive. So he's not very happy about that part there. And of course, Sal fills in as to what's been happening with him and Sofia. And of course, Oz, being 2 steps ahead, knows what the heck's going on anyway. And basically, Sal takes him back to the hideout and to make sure that he gets all of the drug business that Oz has set up so far. Sofia then confronts Oz's mom. Oz's mom, to her credit, really holds her own and basically threatens Sofia with the fact that she'll be dancing on her grave like Ginger Rogers, tap dancing style. She's not intimidated at all by what Sofia brings to her, because again, she knows that Oz is always ahead and always has her best interests, and Sofia is just another hurdle in the way of Oz and his mother trying to get to the top of the criminal underworld. So there's just no fight in her. But then there was a moment of lapse where the dementia then starts kicking in, and Sophia's very curious as to what's going on with her. Why is she talking about her sons in this way, and what happened to her sons? Because what triggered it was that Sofia told Francis, I thought you were dead, because that's what Oz told her. And I understand why Oz would say that, because he didn't want his enemies to find out that his mom was ailing and all about his past. So you tend not to do that in that world. You tend to be a loner and a drifter in a lot of ways. And this is the part where they were just conversing with each other, and then about the tap dancing as well. We then get to see Julian here. He's not tied up anymore, but he does open up and ask Sofia if he could go to the children's center where Gia is being held. Gia, we knew that it's Sofia's niece who was sleeping with her in the greenhouse while everything is happening, but Julian's concerned that Gia has been speaking to doctors and was going to speak to the police about the incident that happened at the Falcone house. Sofia doesn't really think that it's a big deal, because we end up later on seeing her visit Gia at the children's center there. But at the same time, Sofia asks Julian for something else to help her with. And we again get to see here that the dementia has really caught hold of Francis, and we see a scene where Francis basically slaps Sofia, and then Julian starts to try to ask Francis questions about where is she, what is she doing here, does she know who she is, and all that, to ascertain how deep her dementia is at this point. We then transition to Oz taking Sal down to the hideout, and basically in a very vulnerable position here. And it forced a final confrontation with Sal where they are fighting with each other. Of course, there was a diversion that happened as Oz does the head nod to one of his henchmen, and his henchman was able to cause a diversion so that the lights went out, and it forced Oz and Sal to confront each other. Sal then drops down dead of a heart attack, which was very lucky in his case. And like I said, for the free part, he just gets out of situations at all times, whether it's a heart attack, whether it's this, whether it's that. He tends to get out of it. And maybe he's lucky, but maybe because he is 2 steps ahead and he knows what's going on. You could argue that if he had created that diversion, then he probably wouldn't have had that heart attack, or he probably would be dead. So there's a little bit of luck involved, but at the same time, there is that aspect of thinking ahead and making sure that he's anticipating what's going on so that he can get out of it. Then we get to see Sofia finds out that Sal is dead, and it forces a final confrontation between Oz and Sofia. Oz proposed that Sofia gives Oz his mom back in exchange for the drug business. And so Sofia in her mind is thinking, what's going to happen now? Oz is making a move, so what is going to happen next? And Julian advised her to not fall for Oz's trap, because we know from the previous episodes what Oz is capable of. In her mind, she's probably thinking the same thing as well. So she then comes up with a brilliant plan where she has one of her henchmen drives a vehicle into the hideout and basically bombs and destroys the hideout. While at this time, we can see that Julian and Sofia are in another part of town taking Francis to the Monroes. And toward the end, we get to see another flashback scene where Francis and Oz dance together in the Monroe Lounge while someone is singing there. It's a very meaningful place, and we probably will see in the final episode, Oz will figure that out and goes to rescue his mother. But again, Sofia gets the drop on Oz at this point. Oz is going out of the tunnels, basically beaten up in a very vulnerable state. One of Sofia's henchmen then basically says, you're going to go see her now. And that's how the episode ended, with him being knocked out and then being taken to go see Sofia and maybe his mother. So it will be very interesting to see what's going to happen in the final episodes and how they would conclude it, because so far it has been a very excellent series. I think that it has really drawn a lot of interest because of the character study of Oz and the character development of the secondary characters. I'll be curious to find out how it will connect with the Batman sequel and whether or not it's going to play a larger role in the sequel or not, or they mapped it out already so that they're going to try to de-emphasize it. We don't know. Live action TV shows to movie hasn't really translated well in the past with Marvel. DC really hasn't tried this yet, so we shall see how effective that they do in terms of translating this from the small to the big screen. So those are my thoughts about Penguin episode 7. We would like to hear what you have to say about the episode. Please comment down below, like, share, subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you in the next video. All right, take care, everybody.
Work.